She always believed love meant safety, but with Ethan, safety was the last thing she ever got. And the biggest red flag? She saw it, felt it, but still chose to love him anyway. In the beginning, he acted all sweet and soft, charming, saying all the right words that made her heart skip. But even then, tiny alarms rang. His phone flipped face down whenever he got a message. Late-night texts he forgot to mention, disappearing for hours claiming work. Little lies that felt like tiny cuts. She ignored them, convincing herself love meant trusting blindly. After the wedding, the mask fell off. His warmth vanished, replaced by sharp tones, cold stares, and an attitude that drained her every moment. He controlled her time, her friends, her choices. "Why are you making such a big deal?" he snapped. "You're overthinking again." Gaslighting became his language. No action or word of hers was enough. She felt invisible, like she was some low-budget option in his life. He manipulated money too. Her salary was taken, and he reminded her constantly that she contributed nothing. When she suggested working again, he laughed. "Your salary? Please, focus on the house. That's your job." Nights became unbearable. He crossed emotional and physical boundaries she never agreed to, treating her closeness like something he owned. She felt exhausted, small, trapped. Yet she stayed, thinking marriage was about patience, about trying harder. Silence grew around her. She stopped talking, stopped expecting, stopped hoping. Her parents noticed her empty eyes, the fear behind her smiles, and sat her down one afternoon. "This is not love. This is destruction." Their words shook her awake. That night, staring in the mirror, she barely recognized the girl looking back. Exhausted, trembling, done with pretending, something inside her shifted. She deserved better. She had to leave. She packed her small bag and walked out. Ethan barely looked up, just said, "You'll be back. You don't have the guts to live without me." His words, meant to intimidate, fueled a spark she hadn't felt in months. She didn't return. The following weeks were dark. Some days she barely spoke. Some nights, she cried herself to sleep. But with her parents' support, she began putting herself together. She ate properly, walked outside without fear, and slowly found her strength. Determined to reclaim her life, she updated her resume and applied to jobs. Finally, she landed a position in a private company in the city. Her first day was terrifying. She was nervous, surrounded by confident colleagues, unsure if she belonged, but soon she realized she had grown, that the broken version of herself was no longer in control. She handled difficult tasks calmly, learned fast, and earned trust quietly. Within weeks, her dedication and intelligence caught the attention of the CEO, a man known for discipline, power, and quiet magnetism. When she dropped files in the hallway, he crouched with her and said, "Take your time. No rush. Just 2 words." Yet they made her shoulders relax, gave her a sense of safety she hadn't felt in years. He noticed her again when she managed a difficult client call with patience and precision. He paused, watching her work, and said softly, "Good work." She carried those words all day, unaware he was observing quietly, recognizing her intelligence and integrity. She had no idea that this man would one day change her entire destiny. He wasn't just successful, he was on the path to becoming one of the youngest billionaires on the continent. Meanwhile, Ethan had no clue. He assumed she was still struggling, trapped in her life, invisible. He didn't know her courage, her resilience, her intellect, and he certainly didn't know that her life was about to flip again. Not in the way he feared. Something was coming, something that would test him, challenge him, and make him realize that losing her was the biggest mistake he would ever make. Her steps echoed softly across the empty hallway, each one a quiet statement of resolve. The office smelled faintly of coffee and polished wood. Keyboards clicked, phones rang, but she barely noticed. Her mind still carried Ethan's words, the arrogance, the threats, yet she refused to let them weigh her down. Today wasn't about him, it was about her reclaiming herself. The CEO moved through the office with effortless authority. He wasn't loud, didn't demand attention, but everyone followed his lead naturally. She watched him, noticing how he encouraged teamwork, acknowledged ideas with genuine interest, and respected people's space. He gave small nods, quick glances, brief smiles, gestures that somehow carried more weight than words. She caught herself enjoying the low-key buzz of being trusted, a feeling she hadn't known in months. Her first week passed in a blur of learning, adjusting, and quietly proving herself. She noticed gaps in workflow, suggested small but effective improvements, and for the first time, her ideas were considered seriously. One afternoon, she misread a client's chart, and the CEO walked past, glanced over, and said, "No worries, let's tweak it together. Your judgment is solid." The reassurance felt simple, yet powerful. She smiled faintly, realizing she hadn't felt competent in a long time. Meanwhile, Ethan floundered in his own chaos. One failed job after another. Rejections, incompetence, frustration. He assumed she would be struggling somewhere too, still under his shadow. But that assumption shattered the moment he saw her in the building. Confident, calm, efficient. He froze on the spot, disbelief flooding him. How did she grow so fast? I thought I had broken her. Damn. His ego bruised, his arrogance faltering, and the realization stung harder than any failure he had endured recently. Small office moments built a subtle rhythm of connection between her and the CEO. She dropped a coffee cup while rearranging files, and he chuckled softly, almost had a latte disaster there. Later, she corrected a minor spreadsheet error, and he leaned over slightly, nodding appreciatively. Good catch. That's exactly the attention this project needs. These gestures, brief yet sincere, reinforced her growing confidence. She noticed how his eyes lingered just a little longer when discussing her ideas, how he subtly checked in to see progress, always professional, never intrusive. Their interactions remained professional, yet carried an undercurrent of mutual respect. She felt seen, capable, and gradually, she began enjoying the office environment again. The subtle mentorship from him encouraged her to push further, offer ideas without hesitation, and handle challenges she would have once avoided. Every small victory reinforced it, every nod of approval, every brief smile. She was no longer under anyone's shadow. Then, as if on cue, Ethan appeared. He had applied for a temporary position, thinking it would be easy, assuming she would falter. Instead, he saw her standing tall, steady, confident. The sight shook him. He tried to mask it with forced casualness. "Hey, didn't expect to see you here," he said, a weak smile forming. She looked up calmly, her voice controlled. "I'm here to work, like everyone else." His smile faltered. The office quieted subtly, employees noticing the shift in energy, the contrast between her composure and his faltering presence. The CEO noticed too, observing without intervening. Later, he walked past her desk and said quietly, "I appreciate how you handled that. Keep trusting your instincts." She nodded, steady, her heart beating calmly. For the first time in months, she felt that she was valued, not controlled, not belittled. Ethan's panic grew. "She's thriving without me. Every step she takes proves me wrong. How did I miss it?" His jealousy simmered, growing silently as he realized he had underestimated her. Every glance she gave, every confident gesture, reminded him that control was no longer in his hands, and he hated it. Meanwhile, the office day went on. She finished organizing files, adjusted minor details, and handled a tricky client call with poise. The CEO, observing, gave a subtle nod of approval, and she felt a spark of pride, quiet, private, and empowering. Small gestures, a shared laugh over a spreadsheet, coffee mishaps, collaborative corrections, built a rhythm, a human connection that felt natural and genuine, slowly forming trust without words or pressure. As the day ended, she packed her bag, glanced at the CEO, and felt a subtle warmth of recognition, unspoken, yet meaningful. Her life had shifted, subtly but powerfully. She was no longer the scared, dependent woman Ethan had tried to control. She was competent, independent, and slowly, quietly unstoppable. Ethan, still clinging to old arrogance, had no clue the world had already shifted beneath her feet. His assumptions crumbled, his panic silent, but real. Something was coming, an inevitable collision between past and future. Her resilience, quiet intelligence, and growing strength would challenge him, the CEO, and everything she thought she knew about control, trust, and power. Her journey was far from over. The real test, the twist that would redefine everything, was only just beginning. She stepped into the office that morning with a pulse that was steady but alive with low-key buzz. No longer timid, no longer hesitant, she carried herself with a quiet authority that seemed to draw attention without her asking. The hallways, lined with sleek glass walls and polished floors, felt different now, as if the very space recognized her presence. Each step echoed softly, a subtle assertion. She was here to stay, to thrive, to reclaim what had been lost. The first task of the day was a quarterly report review. Numbers and charts that had once seemed like abstract threats now felt like tools she could shape and control. A miscalculated percentage caught her eye, and with a few swift keystrokes, she corrected it before anyone noticed. From across the room, the CEO gave her a nod, small, subtle, but loaded with meaning. A quiet thrill of being trusted coursed through her. This was the first time she felt not only seen, but respected for competence, not compliance. Meanwhile, Ethan lingered at the periphery, attempting to disguise his presence as coincidence. His mind raced. She's the same girl. No, she's different. Every small victory of hers, every nod of approval, every subtle smile from colleagues and the CEO, it all stung. Panic gnawed at him. How did she grow so fast? I thought I had broken her. What did I miss? Throughout the morning, office micro-events showcased her evolving authority. A dropped coffee mug? She retrieved it gracefully, earning a quiet nod from a junior colleague. A misprinted client report? Fixed before anyone noticed. Each small triumph was a statement, a proof that she was no longer operating under anyone's shadow, especially not Ethan's. The CEO, observing from a distance, reinforced this transformation without overt interference. His comments were minimal, his gestures subtle. Your approach is precise. Let's explore this idea further tomorrow. Small words, small smiles, yet a partnership was forming. Trust, respect, and professional admiration, the trifecta that allowed her to thrive while maintaining her autonomy. Ethan, on the other hand, spiraled internally. Every attempt at subtle sabotage, misplaced files, questioning her decisions, hinting at her inexperience, was effortlessly neutralized. She remained calm, composed, and precise. Her adaptability, foresight, and quiet authority only amplified the contrast between her thriving presence and his crumbling ego. By afternoon, tension escalated naturally. She handled a sudden client glitch with calm efficiency, while Ethan watched helplessly, his internal frustration mounting. Each small conflict, each minor challenge, became a cinematic showcase of her growing competence. Every move reinforced a power shift that Ethan could not stop. Through all this, she occasionally reflected on the past, the manipulation, the control, the fear she once felt. But now, she recognized those memories not as chains, but as lessons. A mirror glance reminded her of the woman she had been, trembling under his words, and the woman she had become, strategic, confident, untouchable. The day ended with quiet victories. Junior staff members instinctively sought her guidance, colleagues respected her judgment, and the CEO subtly relied on her ideas for policy refinements. Each moment reinforced that she was no longer just surviving. She was shaping outcomes, commanding respect, and rewriting her narrative. Ethan's jealousy had turned into silent dread. The more he tried to control or undermine, the more she outperformed, outmaneuvered, and outshined. Even minor office interactions, her correcting a spreadsheet, guiding a teammate, impressively handling an impromptu client query, solidified her authority. He realized with growing panic that control was lost and perhaps irretrievable. Yet the past still whispered. Occasional flashes of fear, betrayal, and manipulation reminded her of what she endured. But every reminder fueled her resilience rather than weaken it. She had learned, adapted, and conquered. The final moments of the day reflected a quiet, yet undeniable truth. She was no longer the girl who had once feared Ethan. She was now a force, steady and observant, waiting for the right moments to assert her power even further. Her past loomed behind like a storm on the horizon, but she was ready. Tomorrow everything would shift again. Decisions, confrontations, and truths would collide, and she would face them not as a victim, but as the one in control. The sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long, golden streaks across the polished office floor. Each step she took felt deliberate, purposeful, a stark contrast to the girl who once hesitated under Ethan's shadow. Her heels clicked lightly, echoing softly in the otherwise quiet room, a metronome of control she had earned back. Every movement, every glance, radiated composure. The faint hum of keyboards, the soft murmur of colleagues discussing client updates, even the subtle aroma of freshly brewed coffee. It all blended into a symphony of the world she had quietly reclaimed. Her fingers brushed across the edge of her desk as she approached. grounding herself. Each object told a story of her new command. The neatly stacked reports she had organized, the small corrections she had made to the client's spreadsheet, and the subtle nod from the CEO as he glanced her way. "Excellent work," he murmured, almost as if speaking to himself. It was not just praise, it was acknowledgement, the kind that only came from observing consistency, intelligence, and poise in action. A low-key thrill ran through her chest. This wasn't vanity, this was earned respect. Hard-won, precise, and undeniable. From the corner of her eye, Ethan appeared, a ghost from a life she had once been trapped in. His posture stiffened the moment their eyes met, jaw tightening, shoulders rigid, a silent growl escaping as he processed the transformation he had tried to suppress. She didn't flinch. She didn't glance away. Instead, she allowed herself a soft smile, a quiet acknowledgement that she remembered everything. And yet, she was unshaken. He had underestimated her once. She wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The CEO approached, his footsteps measured, confident, and quietly commanding. "I want you to lead this meeting," he said, his gaze locking onto hers. No hesitation, no patronizing tone, just a subtle confidence in her abilities that made her pulse quicken, not with fear, but with controlled energy, the kind that transformed nerves into precision. She nodded once, small but firm, feeling the eyes of the room on her, a mixture of curiosity and respect. This was her domain now, and she knew it. Emails pinged, a small flurry of activity. A client reported a miscommunication about deliverables. A team member looked flustered. She moved calmly, efficiently, reviewing the messages, correcting minor errors, and issuing instructions that were both clear and tactful. The CEO watched, silent approval in his eyes. Ethan's panic was almost tangible. His carefully maintained aura of superiority was cracking, micro-shattering with each decisive action she took. How had she grown so fast, he thought. I thought I'd broken her. What did I miss? A small incident broke the tension. A coffee mug slipped from a colleague's hand near her workstation. Reflexively, she caught it, her movements fluid, precise, and without a hint of awkwardness. A tiny laugh escaped her lips, almost invisible, but enough to humanize the scene, to show that control did not mean she had lost her spirit. The CEO's subtle smile in return said more than words ever could. Ethan's frown deepened. Her mind raced, not in chaos, but in strategy. Each interaction, each micro-event, every glance from Ethan, every approving nod from the CEO, it all wove together into a map she could read, a game she now controlled. She anticipated his traps, visualized his reactions, and planned counter moves silently. She was 3 steps ahead, always. The thrill of power didn't come from revenge alone. It came from reclaiming her autonomy, from reshaping her environment into a space where she was not just safe, but influential. At one moment, she paused by the window, watching the city below. Her reflection stared back, strong, determined, and undeniably herself. Gone was the hesitant girl who trembled at Ethan's shadow. In her place stood a woman of calculated grace, empowered, and ready for whatever came next. Even the faint light on the polished desk seemed to acknowledge her transformation. A subtle interruption, a whispered instruction from the CEO to a junior associate, drew her attention back. "Keep the client informed and ensure no further delays," she said, voice steady, authoritative, yet approachable. A small nod from the CEO reinforced the trust. Ethan, still lurking on the periphery, clenched his fists. This wasn't the same helpless, compliant woman he once knew. Every small move, every confident step, chipped away at his fragile ego. Finally, the day neared its close. She gathered her notes, making small adjustments, planning for tomorrow's strategies. As she walked out of the office, her eyes caught Ethan's across the room. He looked at her, a storm of disbelief, frustration, and reluctant admiration in his eyes. But she didn't flinch. She only allowed herself one last small smile, a silent message that she had moved on, grown stronger, and would no longer be controlled. Yet, even as she stepped out into the evening air, the tension lingered. She had regained so much, but she knew this was far from over. Ethan's plotting, the subtle power plays he would attempt, and the unanticipated challenges that lay ahead, she was ready. Every step she took resonated with her regained strength, strategic thinking, and quiet dominance over the past that had once threatened her. The city lights flickered on, reflecting in her eyes. Tomorrow would test her again, but for the first time in years, she welcomed it. Her life was hers, independent, respected, thriving, and above all, prepared. Evening had settled over the city, painting the skyline with amber and deep indigo streaks. She stepped onto the terrace. Every breath was deliberate, steady, full of the quiet confidence she had spent years rebuilding. The breeze brushed her face, carrying the faint scent of brewed coffee from inside. Her reflection in the glass barrier showed a woman who had transformed hesitation into poise, fear into calculated authority. The memory of Ethan's smirk lingered, but it no longer had power. It was fuel, nothing more. Inside the office, keyboards hummed softly. Footsteps echoed across polished floors. She moved with purpose, scanning the reports on her desk. Minor discrepancies from the morning meeting had already been corrected by her team under her guidance. Each small victory, each precise action, reinforced her position. She was not just surviving, she was quietly commanding respect, asserting influence with a refined, understated authority Ethan could neither anticipate nor counter. Across the floor, Ethan shifted, fuming silently. He moved toward her desk, a small gesture, but one she had already anticipated. His jaw tightened, fingers flexed. The low growl he tried to suppress barely escaped him. Every step he took only highlighted the power shift she had orchestrated throughout the day. She didn't flinch. She didn't react. Every subtle action of his was mirrored by a calculated counter in her mind. A client email buzzed on her phone. Urgent, minor, yet time-sensitive. She opened it, analyzed the problem, and dispatched instructions efficiently. A few keystrokes, a brief call, and the issue was resolved before it could escalate. She glanced toward the CEO. He gave a faint, approving nod, subtle, yet loaded with meaning. No words were needed. His trust reinforced her sense of strategic control, a quiet thrill coursing through her. Sunlight sliced across her desk, catching the polished edges of papers and reflecting off a coffee mug. The faint hum of keyboards, footsteps, and distant murmurs created a rhythm she had learned to synchronize with. Every small action, the corrected spreadsheet, the perfectly timed guidance, the deft handling of micro-conflicts, built a tapestry of authority and calm dominance. She moved through the office like a conductor, each gesture precise, each glance intentional, each micro-victory deliberate. Ethan attempted another approach, shifting weight, hands flexing, a subtle step closer. She noticed but didn't react. Her eyes followed his movement. Her mind cataloged every micro-action, the faint twitch of his fingers, the way his shoulders stiffened, the slight narrowing of his eyes. She allowed herself the smallest smirk, almost imperceptible. It was a quiet assertion. The girl who once trembled under his shadow had disappeared. In her place stood a woman whose doubt had been transformed into tactical foresight. The CEO called for the end-of-day briefing. She stood poised, hands lightly resting on the stack of reports. Colleagues gathered, attention divided between the CEO's words and her subtle guidance. She led the discussion with precision, confidence, and measured authority. Questions were answered concisely. Challenges were diffused seamlessly. Minor conflicts never escalated. Each moment reinforced her mastery, her evolution, her dominance in the professional arena. Evening shadows stretched across the polished floors as the office emptied. She paused by the glass wall overlooking the city, the lights below twinkling like stars scattered across the streets. Her heart was steady, chest lifted, posture commanding. Her life, her choices, her space, everything had been reclaimed. Independent, respected, thriving, yet the storm had not passed. Ethan's mind raced in the shadows, devising subtle plots, small manipulations, all blind to the 4 steps ahead she had already planned. She inhaled deeply. The breeze carried freedom, strategy, and power. Her chest tightened, not with fear, but with a quiet, intoxicating thrill of control. The day had been won, yet the game continued. Tomorrow would bring challenges she hadn't anticipated, tests of patience, wit, and strategy, and she was ready, not flustered, not reactive. Ready, calculated, poised. She had mapped his next moves, anticipated his traps. Every misstep he might take was already a stepping stone for her advantage. The quiet storm of anticipation hung heavy, a promise of tension, suspense, and cinematic confrontation yet to unfold. Her eyes softened on the skyline. The city shimmered beneath her, and she realized she was no longer a participant in someone else's story. She was the architect of her own, and whatever Ethan planned, whatever the future held, she was prepared. 4 steps ahead, always watching, always calculating. The world she had reclaimed was hers, and she would defend it with every ounce of deliberate strength she possessed. The first golden rays of morning spilled through the tall office windows,
casting muted streaks across polished floors. She walked in, not as the hesitant girl who had once shrunk under shadows, but as a woman poised, deliberate, and undeniably commanding. Her heels tapped softly, measured and intentional, each step a quiet testament to years of endurance, strategy, and small victories that no one else had seen but her.
The office seemed to pause for a heartbeat. Colleagues mid-task glanced up, recognizing authority without needing words. It wasn't the loud authority of theatrics, but a nuanced, understated command that demanded attention. The CEO passed by, offering a brief, refined nod of approval, acknowledgement of skill, composure, and intelligence that required no exaggeration. Ethan lingered across the floor, his jaw tight, his hands flexing subtly with restrained frustration. Every micro-move he attempted toward her desk was anticipated, observed, and nullified by her calm vigilance. She met his gaze once, steady, composed, lips curving into a soft, commanding smile that spoke of control, foresight, and inevitability. No anger, no malice. Only the silent declaration of someone who had mastered her world. A client call buzzed lightly. She answered with precise, fluid confidence, resolving the issue efficiently while guiding a junior colleague with understated mentorship. Every small gesture, from correcting a misprinted report to offering a quick insight, reinforced her composed strength. The office air felt different, alive with her presence, each movement deliberate and visually compelling. Later, the CEO summoned her into the glass-paneled conference room. Sunlight reflected off the polished surfaces, warm streaks of amber cutting across the room. He spoke, calm and deliberate. "I've watched you navigate today's challenges. Your approach is remarkable." She offered a subtle nod, absorbing the weight of recognition without ceremony. Approval, not praise. Affirmation that her composure, insight, and strategy were fully earned. As evening approached, the office emptied. City lights flickered, echoing in the glass walls. Ethan approached once more, hesitant, calculating. He sought understanding, closure, or maybe just comprehension of the woman who had overtaken him without a single overt confrontation. She turned, calm, unflinching. The pause stretched, a silent declaration of the game he could no longer win. You've changed," he murmured, disbelief lacing his tone. "Yes," she replied softly, deliberate and unwavering. "I've changed, and so has my life." He looked away, the truth sinking in. The girl he had once tried to control now stood beyond his reach. Her authority was understated, but undeniable. Her confidence measured but radiant. Her calm fury replaced by strategic mastery. Later, she stepped onto her apartment balcony. The cool evening breeze carried distant city sounds, mingling with the faint scent of rain on asphalt, a reminder that life, unstoppable and renewed, flows forward. The skyline stretched infinitely, each light a symbol of opportunity and potential. Her thoughts traced each small victory, precise emails, subtle guidance to juniors, anticipation of every move Ethan might attempt. Every moment was a thread woven into the tapestry of her reclaimed power. She whispered, soft yet resolute, "I am no longer afraid. I am no longer hidden. I am free, and this freedom, this life, is only the beginning." Her smile lingered. Soft, radiant, cinematic, clear, unforgettable. The camera of her life captured this final frame, a visual testament to endurance, strategy, and triumph. Every trial, betrayal, and doubt had converged into this equilibrium: empowerment, clarity, and peace. Ethan faded into the shadows of memory. The CEO's nod echoed in her mind, not as validation, but as quiet acknowledgement of growth, and she realized that true victory was never over others. It was the mastery of herself, transforming fear into foresight, doubt into confidence, betrayal into clarity. Stars emerged above the city skyline, delicate and distant. She felt the exhilaration of continuity. The journey ended, yet the story of her life brimmed with infinite chapters, each promising challenge met with poise, foresight, and courage. She was undaunted, unshaken, unforgettable, and in that moment, subtle yet profound, she added a tiny thought, hinting at the challenges yet to come, the storms yet to face, but now, with foresight and strategy already guiding her every step. The story had concluded, yet life's narrative promised further triumphs, each echoing the same truth. Resilience, intelligence, and calm determination are impervious to fear or manipulation. Her final breath carried serenity and exhilaration. Her smile lingered, soft, radiant, and poised. a life reclaimed, a soul empowered, a story immortalized. And in that immortality, the audience found inspiration, hope, and the satisfying resonance of a heart finally free.